Hello and welcome to the Fairbanks Year-Round Podcast. I'm joined with Sara, not Millard, Reid. I got it that time. It's been a while since you've been a Millard. And she is the owner of Sassy Scoops. And this is going to be a really fun one because who doesn't like ice cream? So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
So I know Sara. Were you the president of the Key Club or treasurer?
I was something. I don't remember what I was.
I came
Maybe
into the
the vice
Club.
president.
I didn't know what it was. They're like, you should do this, you and Sam. And anyway, so I think I was a vice there for a year, which is fun. I didn't do a very good job. I didn't really do anything, sadly. But when we were in high school, everyone was like, man, that Sara, she sure is sassy. And have you seen her scoops? No. I don't know what that would be in relation to. So, born in Fairbanks, North Pole area? What's your...
Yes,
where do you come from?
born and raised in Fairbanks.
Mm-hmm.
And grew up here, went to North Pole High School.
Yeah.
I'm a North Pole person.
That's awesome. You still out North Pole?
Yes, still in North Pole.
Same. There's something out there. A lot of people seem to not like North Pole. I don't know if it's because it's so cold, even compared to Fairbanks.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it will always be home. I don't have the chip on my shoulder about it like a lot of Fairbanks people seem to have.
No, yeah, I think it's a pretty fantastic place. So, and it's got the Santa Claus house. It's small. It's mostly just residential. It's not like we got a big city or anything there, but no, ton of fun. So let's get into the meat of it here.
Sounds
Sassy
good.
Scoops. So I am, how do I say this nicely about myself? I get jealous of people that are like similarly aged to me doing such cool things. So I hear like when I found out I moved away, I came back, you're doing Sassy Scoops. How long have you been doing it for?
So I got started in May of 2020. Mm-hmm. So right in the middle of COVID craziness.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And that's a little bit 6 months later is when I came back and you already seemed like you were popping off pretty quickly there. Yeah.
It happened very quickly and unexpectedly.
That's
I accidentally started a business. My husband had a Ben & Jerry's addiction, and he had told me, hey, I need to stop eating ice cream. Don't buy it anymore. I'm like, okay, sounds good. Well, then COVID happened, and I was not going to the store to buy Ben & Jerry's, and on the way home from work, he would stop at the gas station, get himself a Ben & Jerry's for like $9. And I was like, this is ridiculous. He is spending so much money on ice cream every day. And one night I just decided, actually it was my birthday. It was March 28th. And I was like, I'm going to teach myself how to make ice cream. So I got online and I ordered a little ice cream maker. It came in like a week and a half later. And I just started playing with different flavors and making different stuff. And my husband really loved it, but it got to the point where I had too much ice cream in the freezer. So I was like, well, everybody's like, it's just a weird time. Everybody's like kind of sad and COVID's going on. So I was like, maybe after he gets off of work, because I was working from home at the time, he would get home from work, we'd have dinner, and then we would go for a drive because I, at that point, needed to get out of the house.
Yeah.
And I would take the ice cream, and we still had snow on the ground because it was like April, and I would put it outside of a friend's house in the snow, and I would text them and be like, hey, there's ice cream outside for you. They'd run out and grab it. And so I had all of my friends like sampling my new little creations, and at this point, it was not going to be a business. I was just trying to do something to make people happy because it was kind of a dark time. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And people started posting about the ice cream on Instagram, being like, hey, thank you for the ice cream. Well, then all of a sudden I had these random people I didn't know trying to follow me. I had people wanting to get ice cream from me that I did not even know. And I was like, what is happening? And one thing led to another. And within a month, I had put my notice in at my job. And quit my job and decided I was going to make ice cream. And my husband was like, okay, what's the backup plan if this doesn't work? And I was like, I don't have a backup plan. I'm just going to make it work.
That's awesome.
And here we are, a second larger location later and still doing it.
Yeah. Okay. I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
So first, I'm assuming that having an ice cream business was like not really a thought before like it started coming to you, or had it occurred to you earlier in life, I'd like to own an ice cream business?
Oh, it was never a thought.
Okay.
It was actually like a joke with my husband's family. My husband's dad always wanted somebody in the family to own a Dairy Queen. And I have always been into cooking. I've always really loved to cook. And as a kid, my dream was either to be a chef or an artist. And I had somebody in my life that always told me like, no, you can't do that. You'll never make money doing that. You'll never be successful doing that. You need to go to college, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Which did not end up happening. I tried doing that and I was like, oh, I do not have the focus for making it through college.
I'm really surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
And knowing you from high school, you seem very academic then.
I don't know.
Yeah. The same could be said for me.
I made it through.
I did one class.
Yeah.
College,
it just was not for me. I did not have the ability to focus on it. So that didn't happen, but I'd always wanted to do some sort of cooking in some capacity. My grandpa growing up was the one who took care of me most of the time and kind of raised me. And from the time I was a little girl, he would set me on the counter while he was cooking. And I was like his little buddy. He would set me there and he would tell me what he was doing. And I learned how to cook from him from a very small age. So it's just always been a thing for me.
Yeah.
That I've really enjoyed, but I didn't ever know like what capacity or how that would take form.
Yeah.
And then the spring of 2020, or it would be spring semester of 2020, so January, I had decided, I'm going to take a cooking class at UAF.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, as I'm doing it, I'm realizing like, I already know how to do most of this stuff. That's no shade to CTC's culinary program. It's fantastic. But I was just realizing like, it was a gourmet cooking class. And I'm like, I already know how to do the majority of this stuff. Like, okay, maybe I'm not as far behind as I thought I was when it comes to that world. And then obviously we went on spring break and we never came back from spring break.
Yeah.
So did not finish the culinary class.
I never thought of this with the college side. So did they do makeups after that? Or like what were they doing?
They had given me the option to either basically like get the credit back through UAF, or you could do an online version of it. So basically like the instructor would instruct via Zoom, but you didn't have, one of the nice things about going to CTC and taking the classes that you have access to all their equipment, which they've got a gorgeous, beautiful kitchen, like a dream kitchen to cook in. And then you've got the walk-in fridges and walk-in freezers with all your ingredients. And I was like, man, I don't really want to do it from home because I'm going to have to go buy all my stuff. And I'm like, that's kind of the point of taking the class, is that I'm paying for all this stuff. So I think some people who probably needed that credit to graduate, they probably did that. But I was just like, whatever, I'm fine.
Yeah, for sure. So something you brought up too is all the experimentation that you were doing. So I am not like a great cook or anything, but everybody generally is cooking something for themselves at some time. So I think there's a lot of times people think like, I can do that. And it was, last week we went and had a dilly pizza at Hungry Robot. And then I was like, it was really good. I'm going to make a homemade version. And it stunk. Like it was okay. It was okay. I was like, oh, darn it. So the only thing I've come close to like not mastering, but getting better and better at, I really got into sourdough bread for a while. And I made 2 loaves a day for like, I don't know how many months. And even after all of that, like I think I had pretty good sourdough, but it wasn't it yet. You know what I mean? So was there, again, I know it sounds very organic. How many batches do you think you were doing before you were like, hey, this is actually good enough? Or was it not a concern because you were just making it for fun?
Well, when I first started, I was just making it for fun. So it wasn't really like if it flops, it's the end of the world kind of thing.
Right.
But I started with like a really good base recipe. And once you've got that, it's kind of like the equivalent of like making pizza dough or making a good sourdough bread. Like as long as you've got a good starting point, like for instance, with sourdough, if you've got a good base sourdough recipe, then from there you can mix in like cinnamon sugar into it, or, braid it into things. Like once you've got that base, you can do all these other things from it. So I had a really good sweet cream base. And then from there I could go, okay, I want to add lemon into this. And then I would, add my lemon powder into it. And so I think it was, one, just starting with like a really good basic recipe, but two, knowing kind of the science behind adding some of those extra things in. And that was definitely a self-taught thing for me. I have just watched a lot of, videos on cooking, but also read a lot. I really actually was recommending this book last night on my Instagram. It's called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat.
Oh, you've seen the show on Netflix?
I've seen the show.
I love her.
Yeah.
I don't know. We watched it. It was my favorite cooking thing I've ever seen. I don't know. I was just talking to Shelby about it. I think it was like how hands-on she was with everything. Like they had some fat and she would just like eat it raw. And it was like, she wasn't afraid to like touch things. I don't know. It was really cool. So
yeah. And that's a super important part of cooking, is being able to like being willing to taste things and feel things, because you don't just cook with, your mouth, or you cook with all of your senses. So if you look at something, you can kind of see that it will change. As like example is, I've been getting really into cakes lately, and the frosting recipe, it basically ends up being an emulsion. And so as you're going through this process of watching this frosting transform, it goes from like stiff peaks, and then you start adding your butter in, and then eventually it gets to a stage where it almost looks like cottage cheese. And if you don't know that you're going to go through that process in the emulsion, you'll look at it and go, oh my gosh, what did I do? This is so messed up. Like I ruined this recipe. But if you just keep letting it go for like another 3 or 4 minutes, all of a sudden you've got this beautiful frosting. So it's like throughout that process, it's important to, use your 5 senses, and they say too, when you go to eat something, you don't just eat with your mouth, you eat with your eyes first, which is why presentation is so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I definitely recommend. The show is great, but her book is just a wealth of knowledge. The illustrations in it are gorgeous. Like I cannot say enough good things about her book and the way she teaches. It's just very, like, it's not like scientific terms, like something that normal people can understand, which is great for a home cook.
Yeah. Well, I'm very much, and again, I don't do like a ton of cooking. I cook most of my meals like in an hour, 1 day a week, and eat the same thing every day. So that's a ton of fun. But I found it's kind of like music. So there, you can like learn a song and play that one song and get really good, or whatever it could be, which is like recipe cooking in my mind. Or there's the people that just riff off each other and they know where they're going. They understand the theory behind it. And I've never hit that point, which I think it's a big investment to get to that point. But I kind of feel like, other people have done that for me, and that's why I follow recipes. Yeah. Although, and I haven't hit this recently, but back when the internet was getting big, but when you started instead of using recipe books, you're using Google to get recipes. There was many times that you do a freaking recipe that person could not have cooked, because you get done with it and it was utter trash. And that is so frustrating to me. A little bit of a side note.
No, it's true. And there's a lot of people, and this is not, I'm not throwing shade or anything, but there's some
You're
people.
sassy. It's okay.
Yeah. There's some people in like the food influencer community that are kind of well known for not really developing their recipes as much as they should, and not testing it out before they put it online. And some of those people have even been given cookbooks, and you go online and you kind of read some of the feedback on it, and it's like, well, once again, her recipe didn't work. And so it's kind of, it's kind of interesting how social media and the internet has really changed the food space. And even with my business, I mean, my business would not exist if it was not for the internet, because my process is so different. And I think COVID really opened the door for a lot of, not just me, but there's so many other businesses like me. Like there's, especially in the States, it's not as common up here. I think I'm a little bit of a one-off, because the way that, for anybody who's not familiar with me, I make ice cream all week long, and then on Wednesday nights, I release my new flavors on my website, and people go online, they order, and then they come in and pick up on Thursdays. And most of the time, I come pretty close to selling out on my website. Well, whatever does not sell out is available for walk-ins on Thursdays. People can come in and pick it up. And then that's also when the people who have pre-ordered pick up. But then there's other things that they can get when they walk in, like baked goods. But most businesses don't run like that. Most people, I'm open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. I walk in, I get it. But in the States, my kind of business model is becoming really popular, especially with a lot of ice cream makers, a lot of micro bakeries are popping up. And it's nice because it's giving a lot of people who have that creative mind the space and the opportunity to start businesses, especially in the pastry world. Like when you're in a traditional kitchen and you're a pastry chef, you're answering to the head chef and you're kind of doing what he wants to do. And you don't really get the opportunity to kind of play around with new flavors and things like that. And so once COVID happened, you saw just an explosion of all these like amazing desserts and baked goods with creative, fun ingredients and a lot of like international flavors blending together, because these pastry chefs and people in the food world, everybody got laid off at the same time. So all of a sudden, everybody's finally getting to play around with all these ideas that they had and also needing to make money off of it because they got laid off. And it's just been a really cool thing to see, not only to experience for myself, but also, you know, my friends, watching them kind of have this happen.
And correct me if I'm wrong, like what you were explaining is like kind of people getting weird and irreverent, maybe with certain food types and doing funky things that haven't been done before. From what I know of your ice cream, that seems to be a lot of what you do as well. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I hope you don't take that, where you're just like trying things that maybe nobody has seen before. You're not doing vanilla and, well, I'm sure you have vanilla, but you know what I mean? You're not just doing those things that you see in a dryer's box or whatever.
Yeah,
you know, so
I'm definitely doing some off the wall stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that is what gets people excited and brings them back. And I know that there's some people who are, you know, very traditional that might not be their jam. However, I think that usually the way I try to balance my menu, because again, if you're not familiar with me, I change my menu just about every week.
Okay.
Because one, I think it is really good. It keeps people coming back because they want to try those new flavors and they know, hey, there's only going to be a limited run of this. So if I don't get this now, I might not get it again for 9 months to a year, because I do repeat flavors, but it's just kind of, I just kind of make what I'm feeling.
That's cool.
So like you might not get that flavor again for another year and a half.
How many flavors are you generally doing? Is there like a set number, or it's again, just what you're
so
feeling?
I usually try to do anywhere between like 5 to 8 a week. Sometimes it's a little bit less, sometimes it's a little bit more. Because as you probably know, being self-employed, your schedule is crazy. Like, for example, right before I'm supposed to walk into this, I have a procedure on Friday, and they called and they were like, hey, can you do it tomorrow morning instead? And I'm thinking, well, I really need to finish making ice cream so that I can, you know, but you know, things change. And so it just kind of depends, but I try to have, you know, at least 5 on the menu. But
so that seems really hard to do. So like making ice cream, and you're good. Making ice cream, and for me, I like to be on a schedule. I find I'm most efficient when I'm doing the same things over and over. And you're obviously doing something very similar, but finding those new flavors and experimenting and everything. It seems like that would be a huge added like time thing for you, or is it just you've processed that as well?
Oh, it definitely is. But the way my brain works, I cannot like. I probably need a lot of routine and stability to make things not be chaotic. However, my brain, my friend Taylor, she'll laugh at me and she calls it following the dopamine, because I'll say like this year, for instance, I've gotten really into making cakes and decorating vintage cakes. Is that what my business is? No, but that's my hobby right now. And that's something that I decided, like, I really want to get good at that. So I've been following the dopamine and making cakes in my free time. But it's like, I cannot do the same thing every day. If I do, I will go crazy. And I kind of hit a wall last year, because one thing that has been told to me by a lot of people, and then once I started to think about it, I'm like, you know, all the people that are saying this have never even stepped foot inside my shop or have never like purchased my ice cream before. But a lot of those people were giving me feedback of, well, you need to be open every day. So for probably 2 years, that was my goal in my mind. I'm like, I need to get to the point where I can be open every day. I need to make so much ice cream that I'm not selling out so I can be open every day. And it just never happened. And I was burning myself out to the point where at one point I was like, man, I keep getting sick over and over again.
Oh,
Went to the
yeah.
doctor, and the doctor was like, yeah, you have bronchial pneumonia. Like, you need to take a few weeks off of work. And she like follows me on social media. And I used to work for her in the medical field. So like, we kind of have a relationship now where she's like not messing around. And she's like, I will find out if you go to work and you will be in trouble.
Yeah.
So at that point, like, I took a couple weeks off of work, and I mean, like work-life balance is hard, and I was not doing good at it at the time. So I took a step back, and I was like, you know what? I need to chill out for a little while. Spent some time at home resting and getting better. And then I was driving over to my mom's house on a Sunday, and I was thinking about the week after that would be my first week back at work. And I was thinking about having to go to work on a Monday, and I was like, I do not want to do that. Like, I don't want to go back to Sassy Scoops. And I was like, feeling. Yeah, I was like, ooh, that does not feel good. Like, this is my baby. I've worked so hard for this. Like, this is something that I'm passionate about, and I don't want to feel like that about it. So I took a step back at that time, and I was like, you know what? I have amazing customers that have been some of them have become like family to me. It's crazy how you can bond through ice cream, but it's happened. I have some of my best friends in the world I've made through my business. And I was like, this has brought so much good to my life. I need to figure out how to do things so that I don't end up hating this. And I just kind of changed the way that I was doing things. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be okay with only being open once a week and just doing like special events, because that's what makes me happy. And honestly, I do way better doing that. My sales are better. The customers seem to be happier. 2 weeks ago, and the other nice thing about that is I'm able to bring other small businesses into my shop, and we do pop-ups together. A friend of mine is getting her business started. It's called Toast. Yes.
I want her on, by the way.
You need to have her on.
Okay.
Phenomenal. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
If you have an opportunity.
Next time you see her, just say, hey, listen, because somebody else had reached out to her as well. So if she keeps hearing it, maybe.
I actually have been talking to her about it, and she's like, oh, maybe. So, but it's nice because I get to bring other businesses in, and she was in my shop 2 weeks ago, and for hours we were packed. At one point, everybody was packed in there like this, like standing room only. And it's like, if I was just open like a normal ice cream shop every single day, blah, 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 one, there would not be that hype to get in there, but also I probably would not have the same opportunities to do things like that.
Yeah. And right from the beginning, where you're saying like kind of trying to form your business around people, and it's obvious that you're saying out loud, form your business around the customers you don't have and probably don't want anyways. But it's I get it too, with any like little negative comment. And I've been really like trying to, not that I have like a huge social media following, but there's a bunch of idiots online that have a lot of opinions. It's like, all right, but sometimes I would I shouldn't read them at all, but you respond or whatever it is. And it's just like, this is stupid. This is like nobody that's looking to improve themselves or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So yeah, leaning into what you're doing. I love like small businesses that stay lean and just cut out all the fat of like, these things that maybe big businesses do because they have to, because they have big management structures or whatever it is. But you can look at things and you can turn on a dime. You can be open one day a week and it works really well. And your profit margins are way better that way than trying to be open all the time and have somebody man the front desk or whatever. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the people who have comments don't understand all the work that goes into it. They don't understand the process. I had somebody recently that owns another business in town, and they were like, well, I don't understand why she can't be open more. I only have, 2 employees and I can make it work. And I'm like, well, selling clothing as opposed to making a homemade ice cream where you're making all of the mix-ins yourself, you're making your base from scratch, which there's not a lot of ice cream shops, even in the States, that make their base from scratch. Most of them will send their recipe out to a manufacturer. The manufacturer will make their recipe and send it back, which I have tons of friends who do that. That's not me. Again, not throwing shade.
Yeah.
But like what I'm doing, because we don't have a dairy or a pasteurization plant, that's capable of doing those kind of things. What I'm doing is not the average ice cream process.
Yeah.
But part of why I'm doing that is because it makes a really good product. And, I could be spitting out a bunch more ice cream, but the quality would go down and I think part of what people appreciate is that I'm putting out a good quality product. Like they know it's going to consistently be good. Every single pint of ice cream is going to hit. So
yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a lot of ways, and people have shown the standard way of trying to get things cheaper and cheaper and be the mass person or whatever. I'm in the fight between David and Goliath. Like I think we should think like David's. If you're small businesses and you're trying to do things like Walmart, you're probably going to lose to Walmart because they'd do it better. So you look at yourself and you say, okay, what can I do that Walmart can't compete? How can I put myself in a different field or something? And I'm not saying you're competing with Walmart, but
no,
I
absolutely.
Guess you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're this little ship. What can you do that big ships can't do? And there's a ton of things. And I think that's the more exciting to me. Anyways, I can go off on that. I did like a few minutes ago, you were talking about how people started asking you for ice cream and things. And this is a very interesting thought to me as well. I think a lot of people start businesses or doing something because they want to make money. They want to have this thing in their life. There's all these motivations. Bar none, the best businesses are the ones that people are asking you to do. So like leaning into, and this is my advice corner, if somebody, and nobody asked me to be a real estate. Well, that's not true. Somebody did. And that's how I got into it. But
see,
yeah, I kind of forgot about that. So there's definitely 100 ways to do things. But one of the ways is, hey, why don't you, if you want to do something that you want to make a business out of, why don't you get so good at that thing that people are begging you to do it for them or for their friends, and that's what happened with you. And you weren't even really, it doesn't sound like wanting to make an ice cream business.
I just wanted to do something in the culinary world. Like it's always been a passion, but I didn't know what avenue it would take. And like I said, this year I've started getting really into cakes, and and I told myself, okay, this is going to be a hobby. I need to have a creative outlet that I am not monetizing. And very quickly, all of a sudden, I start getting requests from friends. Hey, can you make this cake for me? Can you make this cake for me? Yeah. And now all of a sudden, I'm making some cakes. So, that's not me advertising that. I'm not trying
Sassy
to make
slices. Is that coming?
I'm not trying to really make that a business, but if that's kind of where the wind ends up taking me, I'm okay with that because, like I said, from day one, I wanted to be either a chef or an artist. And I think those two things go hand in hand a lot. And it's like, as long as I am able to express myself creatively, I'm happy.
Yeah.
So, whatever product that ends up being for my customers, as long as I'm able to express myself and they're happy and they're getting something that they like, I think it's a win for both of us.
So the name and like the branding of Sassy Scoops is really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did you do all that? Like the logos and everything? We'll start with the name. Where did the name come from?
The Sassy Scoops, I don't know. I just kind of my husband and I were talking about different names. We were bouncing things around. He kept talking about names involving our dogs and this, that, and the other. And I was like, just doesn't feel like me. And I was kind of giving him attitude. And I was like, Sassy Scoops. I was like, I like that. Yeah. And it just kind of I mentioned it to a few people and they were like, oh yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
And it just kind of stuck. And now there's a lot of people that call me Sassy, which is kind of funny because we have we have a friend that her nickname is Sassy. And I kind of feel like I'm encroaching on that sometimes, but I'm like, we can both be sassy. And then the branding, I have a good friend that, I used to do freelance work for him, and it kind of got to the point where we had worked together for so long that he was also my friend, and he was one of the people that was encouraging me when I started making ice cream. He was like, you are so talented. You should really make a business out of this. I'm like, oh, whatever. And he was always encouraging me to do that. So then when I really took the leap, he happens to do graphic design. He knew how to do websites, things like that. And he was like, I want to help you get this going. So he helped me with some of the branding stuff. And I will say, I'm not a genius when it comes to branding and marketing, but I am pretty decent at it. So most of it was my lead and just kind of telling him, because I don't know how to do graphic design, telling him okay, I want this here, I want that here, kind of tweaking things. But it does take a village when you're getting a business started. You definitely need people that have expertise in other things to help you, do it. But
So what is your what does Sassy Scoops like team look like now? It's not just you anymore.
It's me.
It is you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
My mother-in-law is an angel, and she comes in on Thursday nights when I'm open to just kind of hang around and give me a hand. Mainly just because we're downtown, and sometimes there's riffraff that likes to wander in. So it's nice to have a second person there and be safe. But yeah, it's me, and
we got our. So every now and again, realtors, believe it or not, have parties and there's leftover liquor or something. And we're like one street over from you. And yeah, a bunch of homeless folks came in and stole our half-drank liquor out of our, and so that was a lot of fun once.
Oh,
but
wow.
Yeah. So now I'm thinking, I think I left that door open. So hopefully we don't get mugged while we're sitting in here.
Yeah, I got a rock through my window one time. I was sitting at the table. Oh, I don't know. Maybe could have been. I was sitting at the table on my computer, and it was like I don't know, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was a cold day, like a 40 below day. And I'm thinking, man, it was like the first 40 below day since I had moved in. I was thinking, man, these windows are not efficient. They need to these kind of stink.
Yeah.
And got off my computer, went over into the kitchen. I'm doing stuff, and then I just happened to look up, and I'm like, there's glass all over the floor. Somebody, while I'm sitting there, apparently had thrown a rock through the window, but I had my headphones in, so I didn't hear.
Oh, it's terrifying.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay. So, never a dull moment downtown.
Yeah, there's always something. I love downtown. We've had a few folks on who are really working towards revitalizing a lot of the area, which is a ton of fun. But no, I'm also solo, except for my wife, who definitely helps me out a ton. I just don't pay her. Well, I give her all my money, so maybe I don't pay me very much. But where do you see the future of like Sassy Scoops? What does that look like for you?
Honestly, right now the plan is just to continue following the dopamine. I don't have dreams of like opening up 50 Sassy Scoop shops or franchising. Like, I am not somebody who got into business to make millions of dollars. That's not my end game. I don't know. And this is probably not the traditional business owner response, but I'm very okay with just, I don't need a big fancy house. I'm very content to like live my life with my husband and my dog and my 2 cats. And I love to garden in the summertime. And so and that was another thing when I had my whole like bronchial pneumonia mental breakdown. I was like, if I continue trying to be open every day, expand this business, go crazy with that, I don't get to do the things that I want to do, the things that bring me joy outside of work. And I know most people, like I listened to 2 other episodes of this podcast, and both of the people that I listened to were like, I'm really bad about work-life balance. And I was for the longest time, but I will say the past year since I have actively started working on it, I've gotten really good at that. But that does mean that sometimes work takes a backseat and family, comes first, or making sure that I have enough time to water and weed my garden so that, my plants grow. Just little things like that. I think it's very important. And we live in a country that's very hustle culture. And it's like, well, I mean, look at other countries where they do focus on, spending more time doing those things that are actually enjoyable and, are good for your mental health, and look at the happiness rates there. And, statistically, there is other places that are doing better, where they kind of focus on that a little bit more.
What? You kidding me?
Well, not just Fairbanks, but just the U.S. in general.
I'm with you.
So yeah, but yeah, it's just me at Sassy Scoops, me and the ladies of Bravo that I watch. I put my laptop up, put my headphones in, and I watch Bravo while I make ice cream.
Oh, okay. And I was like, what's Bravo? But I see what you're saying now.
I watch some Real Housewives or some Vanderpump Rules, and that's ice cream powered by Bravo, I guess.
Yeah. No, I've also been kind of going through a, I guess redefining success is really tough for me, because ever since I was, 16 or something, a lot of my family's been business owners. So really young, like I knew I wanted to own a business, and I wanted that business to be as big as it possibly could be. And I wanted to be as successful, quote unquote, successful as I could be, and push things bigger and bigger and bigger. And then life happens. I've moved a lot. I've reset financially and everything over and over again. I'm really tired of moving, by the way. But then I'm not old, but I'm getting older, and I've got a little bit behind me. And I'm like, I'm reaching milestones that I would have been like 10, 15 years ago. I would have been like, I can't believe I made it this far. And I would have been really excited about. But I'm hitting those milestones and hardly noticing in a way where now I'm looking back, I'm like, these things I'm looking forward to now, I'm going to feel the same as I do today anyways. You know what I mean? So now I'm trying to figure out like, okay, and I went too far in some parts of my life where it's like, I just wanted to do things that were only fun for me and they didn't feel hard. Everything was light and easy. And then I kind of got depressed on that end too, where I was like, well, then I'm trying to swing back. So I don't know. I'm in this weird spot now where I'm trying to find like, hey, what is satisfying for me to do, but also like I'm not grinding myself into the dirt kind of thing. I don't know if you feel that same. Like I said, it sounds like you're getting a ton better at it.
I got some advice from my doctor when we were having our little talk. And it's not advice that would necessarily work for everyone because one, I don't have children and I can kind of make my own schedule. But the way that I work best is if I can have like anywhere between 10 to 15 hours at work where I just focus in and I zone out. And so the advice that she gave me was like, if that's what works for you, do that and do that for a couple days straight, pump out as much stuff as you can, and then take like 3 to 4 days off consecutively. So you have enough time to reset, recharge your batteries. And I started doing that and it has been immensely helpful for me.
Yeah.
I do still have days where I'm like into day 2 or day 3 of taking my time off and I'm like, oh, I feel kind of bad that I'm not at work, but also I'm like, well, all my stuff's done. The freezer is full of ice cream.
Yeah.
All my deadlines are met, so I think it's just important, especially obviously if you're in like a normal career field where you go to work 9 to 5 every day, that schedule doesn't really work. But if you're in a field where you're a creative or an artist or you're self-employed, like you don't necessarily have to do the normal 9 to 5 like other people do. Find a schedule that works for you. I know I have a lot of friends that are artists and I am one of these people as well. We have insomnia. And so it's like midnight, 2:00 in the morning, 3 a.m, you can't sleep. Well, rather than tossing and turning, just get up, get some work done. And then when you're tired, go back to sleep. Which, like I said, not advice that you could give to most people. It sounds like a
nightmare to me.
Yeah. And honestly, like that is the only way that I've been able to make things work for myself. But because that's not the standard American schedule, it took a lot of time for me to not feel guilty about doing that, about, being on midnight hours. And there's times where people will drive past the shop at 2:00 in the morning and I'll get a message on Instagram. Hey, I just wanted to check and make sure everything's okay. The lights are on at the shop. And I'm like, just me not being able to sleep again.
So you're getting up and you're driving to the shop
well, there has been times where if I can't sleep for a while, I'll just go in at 3 or 4. But then there's also times where I'm like awake and I'm getting stuff done and I'm on a roll. So I'm like, I'm just going to stay here. And my husband knows, like he'll ask me, hey, how long are you going to be here?
Yeah.
And I have no sense of time either. I have no sense of how long things take.
Yeah.
So he always knows I don't ever know. It's an estimate. It's either going to be a late night or I'll be home by like 5.
Yeah.
And he's fantastic. Like he just rolls with it. He loves my business and he's super proud of it. So he's like, whatever you got to do to get stuff done. And I kind of let him know. We've got like a shared Google Calendar and I'm like, okay, you can see I've got a bunch of events and a drop and all this stuff this week. So he knows, hey, you need to pick up the slack that week.
Yeah.
And then when it's my couple of days off, I get caught up on stuff at home. I, do my part in picking up the slack. And I think it's really important if you are somebody like me who's a little chaotic and a creative to have.
I'm realizing more and more how different we are.
Yeah.
Like the idea of getting out of bed at like, I will lay in bed for 4 hours if I can't sleep, which is not generally a problem I have though. But that's wild to hear. So so you're dealing with it in a different way, which is another bonus of business ownership. And again, depends on the business. Some things,
some things you just can't do.
Yeah. You've got to work around with what you've got. We did talk about ice cream. I don't know if I specifically asked, did you think you were going to be a business owner up to this point? Was that something you were aiming for, or were you know what I mean? Like I said, I've always wanted to be a business owner. It was like always like a dream of mine, but was that something that you cared to be?
I think so. I don't think I really understood all of what it entailed.
Oh yeah.
Because it really is like so many jobs. It's like, okay, you don't just say like, oh, I'm going to own a business. It's like, okay, well, you've got to be a content creator and a customer service and the person who makes everything. Like there's so many things, especially when you're just a sole proprietor or a sole business. But I've always kind of had that like entrepreneurial, oh my gosh, I can't say that word, but I've always had that like bug. Like my uncle used to bring like candy bars over to my house every day. And I don't know why he did that, but like he would stop at the gas station and buy like 3 big candy bars, like random stuff, and bring them to my mom and I. And we would play guitar together. And it got to the point where we had all this candy in our house. And I think I was in like 5th grade at the time. So I started taking the candy and I would take it to school and I would sell it to the kids at school, which is like such a random thing to do. But like, I've always just had that like, kind of, I don't want to call it like a hustle mindset because like, obviously I'm trying to get away from, that kind of hustle culture vibe. But, I've just always had that kind of like bug to do that.
No, I'm jealous. Almost every like business owner is like, oh yeah, I was selling lollipops to the kids at school. I did none of that. So
I literally was doing that.
So maybe I wasn't as cut out. Did you have somebody in your life that like business owner, parents, like uncles, anything like that you kind of saw them living that lifestyle, or are you kind of the first?
I had a few people that like had failed businesses that I watched.
Well, it's more common than successful businesses. So,
So, I mean, I watched, and I think that, if anything, probably turned me off from wanting to have a business. Because I watched a parent go through having like multiple failed attempts at, and I think he was probably following the dopamine as well, but it just didn't work out. But yeah, no, I don't think I had any, not that I know of. If there's somebody in my family watching this that has a successful business, and I'm not thinking of you, I'm sorry. But
well, it's kind of funny. I've been reading some like more statistics books and things, and they're talking about like chances of things happening and survivor bias, and a lot of it is the business stuff. So most businesses fail, and then people with successful businesses can often think it's something they did, which it's, I hate to take anything away from everybody. I'm not saying this to you directly. But sometimes it's like chances are if you're going to start a business, it's going to fail. So if you're wanting to be a business owner, go in knowing that, hey, you're going to have to start multiple probably if you want to find something successful. Maybe it's the first one, you hit it right off. And things are hunky dory, but yeah, it's one of those deals. There's so much that goes with it. Like you're saying, you were unprepared. And myself as well. I'm not just saying you, but like for a lot of these things that come up, they're like, I have to do so stinking much. I have to record a podcast and then I got to write offer after this or, whatever it may be where it's like, I thought I was just going to be showing houses. Like that's what a realtor in my mind was, is like, you just unlock doors and that's all you do all day. And it's like, what fun, but one thing you did bring up as well is losing the excitement for what you're doing. And I think in 9 to 5, people have kind of normalized that where they're like, they hate work, and these days, and when we're going through high school and everything, people are really pushing towards like living your passion. And I appreciate that as well. Real estate has been like the most enjoyable thing I've ever done. However, there's always stuff that kind of stinks, whatever you do. And maybe not in the ice cream biz. I don't know.
there's, I mean, who wants to do dishes? Like, there's definitely parts of my job that I'm like, I hate doing this, but
how you approach it seems to change the overall outcome. Because you can, like you were saying, you can begin to hate, you can burn yourself out. Everything can feel like dishes,
absolutely.
Or everything can feel like ice cream. And I've felt the same thing where I was just like, I don't even know why I'm selling real estate. And usually when it happens is, I have clients that are being buttheads or whatever, that's usually the case where I'm like up late at night, like thinking, oh, why are they, doing this or whatever, or maybe I've made a mistake too. That certainly happens. But, again, you can dive into those scenarios and you can even set yourself up for those. So a lot of things people don't think about with like clients is, firing your clients is a thing that people don't really realize a lot of businesses have to do, where it's like, hey, if I continue to take on these clients that we don't get along for whatever reason, we just don't geehaw together, it's making things really hard on me, and I can't imagine doing that long term. So there's always some things you can change. Like, hey, I'm going to work with the people that want to work with me. They're going to be happier. I'm going to be happier, and I'm going to want to do this more. I'm going to be more successful. It kind of like compounds on itself. And I'm sure you feel that as well.
Definitely. And I think what I put out brings in my ideal client, because when I first started out, I had some people that were like, consistently, I was having some real turds back to back, like people who were really rude. I think because I have an unorthodox process and they would
Yeah.
get mad and angry. But now, like, honestly, I haven't had anybody that I know of that has made a fuss or a stink or has been mean in probably like up to a year. But I think it's because that's what I'm putting out. And I'm also like, even on my social media with some of my videos and stuff, like people know like, hey, I don't want to like, a few people have compared me to like the soup Nazi on Seinfeld.
Oh, wonderful.
And I'm like,
I didn't know
I'm
this.
not like that, but it's like people know because it's Sassy Scoops.
You
like
need a huge
you don't-
spoon and you just bang that sucker.
Yeah,
Somebody's- I love that a
like
lot.
don't like she doesn't put up with stuff, which is funny because I'm like not a mean person or anything.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like I've kind of got this vibe of like Sassy Scoops, like you don't mess around. So
Yeah.
it's kind of been nice. It was like an unintentional thing, but
Something I've found for myself is I don't carry the weight of things that aren't my decision anyways.
Yeah.
So people that are complaining about your business, it's like it's on you to not come in here anymore. Like
Yeah.
this is how I do it. And you can like it or you cannot. It really doesn't bother me. But if you don't want to buy my ice cream, and that's what I felt myself because I take on these stresses of other people's decisions, especially in real estate, because I am advising, but I'm not the one buying a house. So I'm in this really like almost consulting place, but I was taking the stresses if I am the one that had to make the decision. It's like, okay, no. Here's my experience. Here's what we're seeing in this situation. Here's your options. Which way do you want to go?
Yeah.
And then I sleep like a baby at night and it's so much better. And this is like going through my head in the past like 6 months, but up till then it felt like to be a good agent, I needed to be like emotionally connected to everything that happened. And I just don't think that's the case. I mean, I'm doing the job. I want people to have a great experience, but at the end of the day, it's their money. It's their house. It's like, I have to give, them the space to make those decisions.
Yeah.
And it seems to release a bunch of tension from me.
well, and I think it's really important to remember that taking on everyone else's like emotional burden, like you said, like it's not your responsibility, but it's also not good for you. Like you cannot control what other people do. You can only control yourself and your emotions. And
it's not helpful. That's the other thing too, is when I was taking on the stress, it's not helping my client. And that's like at the end of the day, it's like, it's actually harming, maybe not that client, but the next client that I'm thinking about that client and I'm not 100% with them or whatever it could be. So there's a bunch of crossover for me where it's like, this is harmful and it's stress. It's like only negatives and I keep doing it. And I think there's a lot of things in life like that. But on the ice cream business, do you sell to individuals? Obviously, like you said, you've said your schedule. Do you sell to like restaurants and things that serve?
Yeah. So I do have a restaurant that I work with, Latitude 65. They are
Zeb works here. I don't know if you knew.
So there's two Latitude 65.
Oh, I'm sorry. Lat 65.
Yes, there is.
I take it back.
Lat 65, which is the brewery, but then there's Latitude 65 out at Borealis Base Camp. And I just have to give a plug to George out there because he is doing really cool things with food. There's not really anybody else in town that is doing stuff like he is. He is a prime example of somebody who's like using their creativity to make beautiful food. So one of the things that I do for him, I do send vanilla bean out to him, but I also, and this is like the most fun thing that he came to me with. He goes, I want to make a baked Alaska that looks like the Northern Lights. And I was like, okay. So he tells me I want squid ink as the black part of the ice cream. And I was like, okay, squid ink. At first I was a little hesitant, but it does not taste like fish. It's actually a very delicious ice cream. Not to toot my own horn, but toot on that one.
Does it change the flavor or is it
It changes the flavor slightly, but it's not like it's more of like kind of like a salty vanilla rather than a, hey, I'm eating squid ice cream. And then I layer purple and green ice cream. So these all go into like a dome shaped mold and the black is on the bottom layer, which then gets flipped over and becomes the top, obviously.
Yeah.
But the black is the bottom layer. And then I alternate bright purple and bright green ice cream, which is ube and pandan. So we're doing like really unique flavors,
What are those things?
So
what's ube?
Ube is like a root vegetable. It looks kind of like a yam. I am using like a ube syrup rather than the actual, I'm not like I don't even know where I would get a bunch of ube up here, to be honest with you. That's kind of an Alaskan thing. Like some of these things I got to get in a concentrated form rather than in their natural form.
Right.
And Pondon, it's like, it almost kind of looks like lemongrass. And if I'm saying this wrong, I apologize. I don't know if somebody in the culinary world is going to watch this and be like, you're wrong.
That's okay.
But that's my understanding of it. I have never in my life even seen what it looks like in person because this is Alaska. But yeah, so I flavor those two as well and just layer it in between. And then he does like a torched meringue over it. I think it's got like maybe a cake under it, if I remember correctly. And then when you cut into it, it looks like you're cutting into the Northern Lights. They're really awesome. Pretty. And he originally, I think, did them for like a wedding and then ended up putting them on the menu. So I've been working with George pretty much since I think it was like the second year I was in business. And he's just doing really cool stuff out there.
Yeah. Do you want to do more of that?
I would love to do more fun projects. But again, like there's only so many hours in a day. And I do get a lot of people that are asking me about wholesale all the time, businesses. Right. And it's just like, unfortunately, I cannot keep up with all of them. And I would love to be able to, but it's like, okay, if I take on that, then I have to get rid of something else in my life. And at this time, it's just not part of my plan to do that. But as I can take on more fun projects, I'd like to, but
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, you take a little here to give to something else. So maybe if you did wholesale, you wouldn't be able to try as many new flavors because maybe they want the same thing on the menu, every day or whatever you're sending it to. So cool. All right. Well, is there anything else we should know about Sassy Scoops? We do have a fun event coming up on March 28th from 4 to 7. It's a Thursday evening. Katrina with Toast is going to be back again. I know there's a lot of people that have been anxiously awaiting her to come back to Sassy Scoops. Yeah. And then I'll also have 2 other vendors there. Smell This. Denise makes really cool candles, and we've got a special flavor from her in the shop, so she'll be there. And also Brittany from the Bond Bar, she does permanent jewelry, but that's actually my birthday, so we're doing a Sassy Scoops birthday bash with some of my favorite businesses, and I'll have like a bunch of really cool little birthday cakes for sale and just all the fun birthday flavored things because birthdays are fun and it's an excuse to have a fun event. So I think it's pretty indicative that you want to do your birthday, like an event like this. You actually enjoy what you're doing.
I love a theme. I love being extra. And I love I know it sounds kind of silly to be like, hey, everybody come celebrate my birthday. But I like putting on fun things for people. And
Should people bring presents for you?
No, I don't need presents. The present is you coming and enjoying ice cream. But like we just did ice cream for breakfast a few weeks ago with Katrina Toast. And I told people, I was like, come in your pajamas. I'll give you a free sticker if you come in your pajamas. Like I said, I love a theme. It's fun. Yeah. So, I got to do something fun for my birthday.
No, absolutely. I kind of stopped doing birthday parties as an adult because people would bring presents and it always felt really weird to me.
Like,
that's why I brought that up.
I don't want a present. I just want everybody here and to celebrate and have fun.
I want to have an excuse to get together with my friends or whatever.
Exactly.
Cool. Yeah. So, and what's the best place if people want to order? Is it your website? Is it through?
Yep. So Wednesday evenings on my website, it's www.trysassyscoops.com. Flavors do not go up until 8 p.m. I have a lot of people that will message me at like 6 or 7. They're like, everything's sold out. I'm like, oh, no, they're not. I just haven't put them up yet. So 8 p.m. on Wednesday evenings. And if you are not somebody who wants to pre-order, you have to be okay with picking whatever's left because some of that stuff does sell out. But you can always walk in on Thursdays from 4 to 7. There is occasionally times where I'm closed on that Thursday evening, like if we're doing a big event on Saturday or something. But I try to post on social media and Facebook and be good about, letting people know what's going on. Yeah. So that's where you can find me. But if you try to walk into the shop on a normal day, the door will be locked.
You got to break in with a rock.
Yeah. Actually, please don't do that. My landlord might not like that very much.
We're not asking for that.
No rocks, please. No bricks either.
Awesome. Well, this is a really cool business, obviously.
Thank you.
It's a ton of fun. Way to go. You do everything perfect and wonderful, and the world is great.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
I'll see you.